Q&A.
Q&A.
Oh yeah. We'll start with the fun one from our boy Brenton Curtis. And he just wants to know, what do your cheat meals look like?
Cheat meals.
I know. So we can go into something else, but that's what.
No, that's great. What do our cheat meals look like? That's a great question. First, before we get to that exact question, I do have a question for you, Nsima.
What's up?
How do you utilize quote unquote cheat meals for your clients, family members, friends that are asking you questions about diet? Because the cheat meal thing is an interesting thing to kind of talk about and examine. But my personal feelings towards it is like, people like, they kind of need something to look forward to. So if you say, hey man, this diet is going to be a change in your life, but every Wednesday and every Saturday, you're going to get to like just use 500 calories or 1,000 calories, or you're going to be able to do like kind of whatever you want for one meal, or however you want to put it. How do you kind of assist people with stuff like that?
So there's always general guidelines when it comes to something like a cheat meal. And this is even for myself. If I choose to like have dinner with a friend or something one day, I do have people think about, number one, when you go out to this restaurant, you're not drinking a lot of calories. So yeah, if you want to get a beer or some wine, fucking go for that. Okay, but don't get multiples. But number two, you're not drinking a full sugar Coke or whatever. You're not drinking your calories. Just like Mark mentioned over here, that guy, that barber, one of the biggest things that he did was he stopped drinking his calories and he started losing weight. So you don't drink your calories when you have your cheat meal, right? And also when you go out to whatever it is that you're about to go eat, still try to focus on getting filling food, right? So if you want to go to some place like, let's say you go to like a Cheesecake Factory, right? Cheesecake Factory has a lot of different type of meals. Get yourself a burger, right? Get yourself a burger, enjoy the burger, but maybe go double patty and maybe just don't do the fries, right? Don't do the fries and add something else to the meal to fill you up. Because again, when you eat out, you can still eat in a healthy way and enjoy your food, but you can still have strategies to make sure you fill yourself up, maybe eat and you're satisfied.
And maybe eat the burger first, just so maybe you potentially eat a little bit less of the French fries. And
yep.
I do think there's times to just kind of go for it. What you'll notice is that over like a long period of time, your cheat meals will become more and more pathetic.
Yeah,
they'll legitimately cut, like you said, half of a Ben and Jerry's. Like, I know that you're thinking like, come on, you little bitch, like what the fuck are you doing?
I had a full one last night. Okay, don't call me a bitch. I can still go to town on those, man.
I'm just saying, your internal dialogue, you're like, dude, I can't believe you're failing at life. This is horrible. We're putting half back and we're being reasonable. But I think for most people, I think that will happen over a period of time.
Yeah.
It's hard to like learn yourself. It's hard to know yourself. This gentleman, this barber that I met the other day, that came down from 345 to 270.
Yeah.
He said that food is such an issue for him that he's only allowed to kind of mess around about twice a month. He's only allowed to have a cheat meal about twice a month. And he said it's like, he does it like, every other Saturday or something like that. And he just said like, he does not waver from that. He's like, I'm just not allowed to. He's like, I literally know that I can do that, but I also know that I don't have the control to do that. And I was like, dude, that is amazing. And I said, I bet you'll get to a point though, where you can do that. He goes, yeah, he's like, I'm hoping that I get to be that way at some point. So the cheat meal thing, I think, I like what you said about it, is like, maybe have some rules for it. I think where people can get really carried away is to have like a cheat day.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a cheat, I used to do them all the time. It used to be effective when I was young. But I would do it differently if I had to kind of do it all over again. I'd probably be further along at this moment. So instead of like a cheat day, what I would suggest is maybe you have a couple of cheats throughout the day, but try to still get your protein in there. Try to still stuff yourself with protein so that way your overall calories aren't just off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
This is okay. So this is what I want to talk to. Sometimes when you have a cheat meal, you're like craving something like pizza. So you're like, ooh, pizza. But when let's say that there's a day that I want to go out, I want to go to fucking town. So let's say this is a day that like I have planned with a friend. I want to fucking eat. I make sure that I don't even call it cheat meals or whatever, but I make sure it's something that I can go down on. And like,
you said that before. Where you're gonna go down on food.
Yes.
And
Because
I like
sometimes
it.
food is just as good as, I'm sorry, sometimes food just be, Korean barbecue is one of those
Yes.
things where I'm just like, let's go, because it's all you can eat meat, right? And they just bring out the meat, you cook it, and it's just protein and fat and protein and fat. And I am just cooking ribeye after ribeye after ribeye after ribeye, right? But when I look at that, like I'm not eating an excessive amount of carbohydrates. It still falls within line with what I'm trying to do nutritionally. So I think if you can, when you have these cheat meals, try to make sure it falls in line with kind of what you're doing. Like both Mark and I, and you to an extent, we do low carb stuff. So at most, usually I'm eating maybe 150 to 200 grams of carbs a day, sometimes less. But when I go to Korean barbecue, I'm just eating pure protein. I feel so satisfied. I feel like I did something nasty and dirty, and I got my fill, right? So have it fall within your food guidelines.
Yeah, and I know, like Nsima, you do the opposite, but I'll explain my method about the pregame, and then you can do yours. But so, like, what I do is I'll try to load up on my normal foods, but like, let's say it's chicken, I'll eat a little bit more chicken, and I'll keep the carbs down. And then right before, so I do this before I go to like a family function where there's usually not going to be a lot of like,
I'm so happy you
like
said
great
this.
options. So I'll make like one of my anabolic ice creams where it's the size of a Ninja blender. So by the time I get there, there's very, very little room. The method that you use, I've tried.
I love that Andrew turned into such a fucking meathead.
Yes, yes.
It's so exciting.
Stephanie took a picture of
Like
me as we're
you're
driving.
worse than us.
No, I am. It could be so. All right, you know, I don't want to get into it, but when you
Got his
find
Tupperware and his fanny pack.
when you discover something new, and like we'll say CrossFit, okay, like
so proud of you right now. Like I'm gonna cry. I'm tearing up.
You really are tearing up a little bit.
I am.
I love you, Mark. You're the best.
Oh, God.
You know, like,
So
like
good.
when you discover something new, like we'll just say CrossFit, and like they say the hardest thing about CrossFit is not telling somebody you do CrossFit. So like with me, this is like so like, I mean, it's not brand new. It's like within the past like year and a half to 2 years to where I'm like learning how to like actually dial in my nutrition. So like it's exciting to me. Like when I hear people talk about, oh, I used to, be the dork that would carry Tupperware everywhere with me. I'm just like, dude, that fires me up. I love that. But anyway, yeah, there's a picture of me drinking a big ol' like protein shake on the way to my sister's house and just sipping on it as I drive. Because when I get there, I don't want to fill up on anything else because there's just no more room in my stomach. So I can't really get into too much into too much trouble. I have tried your method, and for me, that's not working. But can you tell people what, like, your approach to the same scenario where you're going to go somewhere and there might not be that many good options?
So this is like, okay, so you're talking about how I mentioned how I fast beforehand.
Yep.
So there's two ways, and you can mention this because first off, Andrew, thank you for mentioning that because I would have totally forgotten. It is a good idea. Like, if I'm going to Korean barbecue and I know it's going to be meat, I won't worry about I will fast so that when I do eat, I'll get full and my total caloric intake won't be crazy. Because if I ate a few meals during my day and then I go to Korean barbecue, I will have eaten so much food that I've eaten too much. So that's why I fast. But a great thing that Andrew just mentioned is the meal before the meal. So if I was going to do something like pizza, I know that's a lot of carbs, it's a lot of fat, it's a lot of mixed calories. It can be just very calorically dense, right? And it's very appetizing. I'll have some protein. So I'll try to make a steak or something like some boiled eggs, and I'll fill up on some protein before so that I can go eat some pizza, but I will get full quicker and I will then still have enjoyed the pizza. And you talk about this all the time.
That's huge. I think eating before you go eat is like a really excellent idea. But you can go too far with that. I think a great place for people to, or a great thing for people to have in their brain is that let's have our diet be fluid. Let's have our diet be, a little Bruce Lee-esque. Like, let's use like whatever we need to like fuck somebody up. Let's use that. Like, if we need to use jujitsu, let's rely on that. If we need to use American freestyle wrestling, let's use that. If we need to just use brute strength, let's use that. So when it comes to nutrition, I think it's good to be like a chameleon a little bit and be able to kind of adjust to the environment that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds a little two-faced and sounds a little bit like you're doing it when it's convenient, but people do this all the time. We lean into our ideologies and our religions like as it's convenient for us, and we bring up these political things in only when it's convenient to make a point, right? Yep. And I think like let's just do the same thing with our nutrition. So even though like I bitch about like calorie counting and things like that, it's like, well, the only way that I think that I could actually cheat on my diet, if I'm actually trying to be reasonable and sensible about it with the knowledge that I have, the only way for anyone to cheat on their diet is to overconsume calories. Mm-hmm. That's really it, right? Yeah. The overconsumption of calories. Now, if you're on a no carb diet, let's go back to examine why you might be on a no carb diet. If you're diabetic, that's a different category. If you're on any specific diet because of a disease, that's a different thing. But in general, the only way that anyone could really truly cheat on any diet where they're trying to manage their body fat levels and where they're not trying to gain weight, the only way to cheat would be through overeating calories. And so if you were on a no carb diet, the reason why you're on a no carb diet is because that is encouraging and helping you to keep your calories in check, to keep your diet in control. The only way to cheat is for us to somehow lose control and start to head down that highway of just smashing tons and tons of calories. So this is a principle that I've adopted, and it's really helpful because I can think, what are some strategies that I could utilize to make sure that I don't have a net ridiculous gain in terms of calories for the day? Well, I can go expend some calories. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't need to be crazy about it. I don't need to go for like a 5-mile run, or I don't need to be, to have a crazy mindset towards it. But let me walk a little bit more. Let me get in some strength training for the day. And now if I'm going to like mess things up, I'm going to do so later in the day. I'm still going to have like diet drinks instead of drinking calories. Even if I have alcohol, I might make choices with alcohol that are less likely to lead to overconsumption of calories, like consuming like hard alcohol rather than like, wine or beer, which might have more calories in it. Mm-hmm. Just like, little tips and tricks like that. And wherever I can, I'm going to try to eat more meat. I mean, last night was probably a good example. I went to Camden, which is an amazing restaurant here in Sacramento. And, the appetizers, there was, kind of like a poke tuna type thing that was really good. I can't remember. Oh, there was carrots, which is another weird. It was a weird appetizer, but it was really, really good.
Okay.
And there was something else that came out that was like some other type of like meat thing came out, Mm-hmm. And so I had all three of those things, and I probably like ate more than normal, and then I had my meal, and I had like a 10-ounce filet. When I got home, I was still hungry because the meal took a long time. And so I was like, all right, first thing I'm going to do when I walk in the door is make a steak shake. I'm going to make a protein shake. Yeah. So that way my mind's not racing about eating a bunch of other junk. Yeah. And I had a tasty pastry, and that was it, And so I probably for the day, I probably did eat a little bit more than normal, but it was like, it's not going to do anything to me. It's not going to make me fatter. You know what I mean?
I liked what you said about like, so we'll just call it like MMA. So mixed macro arts.
Right.
Mixed macro arts.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to add to that, or want to move on to the next question?
Let's move on to the next one, I think.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on.
All right. So
where are people asking questions, by the way?
So right now, everyone's on the YouTube live at powerproject.live. But youtube.com/ I think it's Mark Bell's Power Project. But you can just find us. YouTube search Mark Bell's name, and you'll find our podcast.